Good afternoon, and this is Justice for All. I'm George Yates, and we'll be here the next couple of hours with this show here on 1650 AM, and looking forward to a really interesting kind of an afternoon. Beautiful sunny day out there. This is we are live from the studio here in beautiful Portsmouth, Virginia, and we've got a couple of interesting guests today. But my first guest is really a fascinating character. He's famous, and most of his claim to fame really is from the attacks on the Twin Towers from September 11th, 2001. His name is Bernard Kerik. He was the police commissioner and America's top cop when we were attacked by terrorists, and he was instrumental in really one of the major forces in New York recovering from that terrible attack. And he has written a book called Jailer to Jailed because of Mr. Kerik, following his famous turn as America's top cop, was nominated by George Bush for Homeland Security Secretary, a cabinet-level post. And during the course of that vetting process, it turned out that there were some things in Mr. Kerik's past that the federal authorities thought were questionable and criminal, and he was ultimately prosecuted and spent time in a federal penitentiary. So an amazing turn of events where someone that is about 1 minute about to be a cabinet member, perhaps, and the next minute is serving time in a federal penitentiary. And he's written an incredibly good book called Jailer to Jailed. I've read it, and he is with us today. How are you doing, Bernard Kerik?
I'm just fine, thank you, sir.
Listen, I read this book, and I was just fascinated on your scathing review of the federal justice system, how you were treated. I mean, here you are, somebody, a nonviolent, supposed perpetrator of crimes. How in the world can it be that we have a justice system in America that would treat someone like you, who deserves the kind of respect that you've earned with your service to our country, in the manner in which you were treated?
Well, listen, first of all, I'd be the first to say that I made mistakes. I talk about it in the book. In my opinion, I don't think there was anything in my background that couldn't have been handled civilly or ethically. The Justice Department chose otherwise and brought criminal charges. And as horrific as it was for me, personally, on a personal note, it was far worse when I actually got into the system and got to see other things that was going on in the system that I was unaware of as someone that ran two of the largest law enforcement organizations in this country, being the NYPD, and I ran Rikers Island before that, one of the nation's largest jail systems, for nearly 6 years. So it opened my eyes to things that I think shouldn't be happening. And it's given me a new mission, to fight for criminal justice reform on a national scale.
Well, your book is called From Jailer to Jailed, and it is, I'm sure, available, and it's on sale at Barnes & Noble and through Amazon Books. So those of you listening, to go get a copy of it. It is a great book, Mr. Kerik. You were the police commissioner of the city of New York, a very important position, while Rudy Giuliani was mayor of New York, and then later you served. You provided advice on security to the people all over the world. What was it that you allegedly did wrong that landed you in prison?
Well, in the aftermath of my nomination in 2004 by President Bush, I had to withdraw a week later. It was exactly 1 week, Friday to Friday. I had to advise the president that I had employed a nanny, a domestic servant, my wife and I, for a 2-year period that we failed to pay payroll tax on. And in other words, you pay your nanny cash. So
Uh-oh.
that started a 5-year torturous state and federal investigations process. There was an 18-month grand jury, state grand jury, that looked at some apartment renovations I had. They concluded that there had not been a crime, that it was an ethics violation. I was given a fine of $220,000. I paid the fine. I was told by the state that that would end all the investigations against me. I could move on with my life. And within several weeks after, the federal government came in, basically investigating the same exact thing. And ultimately, in 2009, I pled guilty to tax and false statement charges relating to the apartment renovations again, and also relating to my nanny and failing to pay tax on the nanny.
So do you think that the prosecution against you was had anything to do with the fact that you and Rudy Giuliani, who was just about getting ready to run for president, you appeared to be joined at the hip with Rudy Giuliani in the public mind?
Well, I mean, look, we were together. I worked for him when I ran Rikers Island for 6 years. I was appointed police commissioner working for him. Prior to my nomination, we had a company together, a security consulting company, and he was the godfather of my 2 children. So we were extremely close. And, if you go back to those days when these investigations were going on, you couldn't find an article that I was in that he wasn't, or vice versa. He had announced he was planning on running in 2006. It was highly charged, a highly charged political world at the time. And, slamming me or hurting me in any way, obviously, in many people's eyes, hurt him. Personally, I don't think it did. But, with the press and media, especially in the political world, other politicians, they were doing their best to use me to, cloud his campaign.
And Rudy Giuliani is the godfather to both of your daughters. And yet, of course, after all of this, he abandoned not only you, he abandoned your daughters. That's a sad story, and it's in your book. So, has he had any contact with your daughters since all of this happened? Have we lost him? Hello?
Hello.
Hello. You still there, Bernie?
Yeah, I'm here. You there?
Yes, I'm still here. That's kind of a sad commentary that he abandoned your daughters, even though he's their godfather.
Yeah, well, we created distance initially, and rightfully so. Later on, once I was sent away, I would have hoped he was there for them, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
But I try not to look back on that, and I'm home and I'm with my kids, and very happy now.
So what are you doing now? I mean, now because I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and I do know that when someone that had enjoyed the success you had, and once you've got this criminal conviction, it sort of changes your whole future. But so often it puts people in a new direction. So how has this changed the direction of your life, and where are you going from here?
Well, I mean, I'm still doing some consulting, not as much as I was naturally. Once I'm finished with my probation, I'll probably seek to go back internationally. I worked for the King of Jordan. I worked in the Middle East for a long time. There's an enormous amount of work to be done in security internationally. So I'll focus on that. But for now, my principal focus is the criminal justice system, and trying to get the American people to understand its flaws and failures, trying to get the legislators to understand its flaws and failures. These are the people who make the laws that we live by, but many of them have no conception of the collateral cost of a felony conviction, for example. As you just said, the conviction changes sort of the destiny of people. Well, in probably 90% of the cases of those convicted, it crucifies you, it annihilates you personally and professionally for life, forever. We live in a society where we believe, or we're told, that the punishment must fit the crime, and somebody does their time and they move on with their life and they get a second chance. And basically that's all a farce. That doesn't happen. Especially to those that are uneducated, those, first-time, nonviolent, low-level drug offenders. They get locked up for 10, 15 years. What are they doing when they come out? They're not doing anything except reverting to crime, and we force that on them. And we sit around in these hearings and in these, in advocate groups, and we wonder why the recidivism rate isn't dropping. Well, it's not dropping because we don't do anything for these young people. So there's an enormous amount of work to do. I think laws have to be changed, and that's what I'm going to push for.
So we're locking people up for just pure punishment reasons. These people are not violent. They are not a danger to the rest of society. So they're being locked up for months and years when they're not a potential threat to the rest of us. They're just being locked up for and warehoused. Is it fair to say that we are there are people that need to be locked up because we fear them, but the vast majority of the people that are locked up in prisons today are people that we really don't fear. They're being locked up for pure punishment reasons.
Yeah, and that's a part of the national problem and the imagery, if you will, because we've evolved into a society that believes the only punishment is prison. And those people that think like that, especially for nonviolent and first-time offenders and white-collar offenders, the people that believe that, part of the problem is they don't understand what happens when you go to prison. Prison is a training ground for thuggery and criminality. It's an education that you would never get on the outside, and you suck all the societal values out of someone, and you institutionalize them. And I don't think that's what we want back in society, but that's what we continue to do. And we're doing it by the thousands in federal and state prison, where to the point that we're creating an entire second class of U.S. citizen. It's a diminished class of person, and those numbers realizes it.
Hello? Are we still here, Bernie?
Still here.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so when you're doing your time in prison, or let's say your typical low-level, non-violent, first-time drug offender, how is he spending his time or her time while they're in prison? Are they doing anything productive so that when they get out, they're able to change their lives in a positive manner?
No. Where I was, they had adult continuing education classes. And I know this is promoted by the BOP and by the Justice Department that they have these classes, but crocheting, knitting, quilting, I can assure you is not going to do anything to help reduce recidivism. It's not going to do anything to help people get a job on the outside. Then you take people convicted of tax fraud or real estate fraud, and you have them teaching other inmates within the system the very topic for which they were convicted. But there's two problems with that. One, that they were convicted for the very crime that they are now teaching other inmates. But worse than that is the fact that I don't care what they teach them about taxes and real estate and accounting or business, small business opportunities. They can't do that work, any of that work, if they got out. They can't get any job that's regulated by the U.S. government. You can't get because you're now a convicted felon. So you're not going to get a job in real estate. You're not going to get a job as an accountant. You're not going to be able to go to law school. It's a joke. It's a joke. And we talk about these programs that we're doing for people, but they're useless programs. They're not helping anyone.
Well, now what about people that get out and get their civil rights restored? Isn't it possible to go out and, let's say you've got this felony conviction, I'm sure you're going to go try to get your civil rights restored at some point once you've released from probation, right? Can't you go do that and then make yourself eligible for a license of that type?
The problem is, in the federal system, the only way you're getting all of your civil and constitutional rights back is with a federal pardon. You are diminished substantially by that conviction. And the state governments as well. You may get, in some states, you may get your voting rights back. In some states, you can vote right after you get out, some after you're off probation, some there's a time period. There are still states in the United States, I think it's 15, where you can't vote for the rest of your life. I was convicted of a first-time nonviolent offense. I've carried a gun for this country since I was 18 years old. I've actually used a weapon in the performance of my duty to save a partner that was shot in a gun battle. I can't carry or have access or possess a gun for the rest of my natural life. I don't know. It makes no sense. And this isn't about me. This is about an entire nation where we take their civil and constitutional rights and we never give them back. We never make them whole again.
Right. So are you working, what's the solution to that? And are you working with any kind of a group that can maybe change these laws? The fact is that, being tough on crime is such good politics. And there's very, very few legislators that are ever going to get reelected by saying, gee, we're going to, we're going to go ahead and be easier on criminals. They would open themselves to attack for coddling criminals because we live in this society where the people that don't know any better just paint it as some sort of a partisan issue when really it's a whole societal issue that both parties should be in agreement on this. Because I agree with everything you'd said in the book about this. The whole idea, I mean, just as an example, we've got Bob McDonald, who was the governor of Virginia, was recently convicted in a federal court for, I don't know if you followed his case at all, but
I did.
He's got this felony conviction. Bob's well-known here in our area, and I've known him when he was a prosecutor way back in the day. Now, what in the world are we going to be sending Bob McDonald to prison for 2 years for, taking a Rolex watch and some loans from this guy? He's already disgraced. He's got this felony record now, which is going to follow him around. He's going to lose his law license. What in the world is to be gained by locking someone like that up for 2 years or saying, gee, and now, Bob, you can't carry a firearm?
Well, here's what's worse. That's one thing, and I think what nobody realizes, I know there's people out there that say, well, there has to be a deterrent. I have news for you. Bob McDonald was deterred the day they put handcuffs on him.
Exactly.
I can assure you. But beyond that, what I would have done, give him probation, give him a smaller sentence, and then put him on 3 years probation and have him teaching in a community college. Have him teaching ethics classes to companies and other corporations to learn from the lessons he's learned as a result of what's happening. But there's, if you looked at McDonald's case, that's one thing. But look at Rod Blagojevich's case. They put this man in prison in Illinois. They put him in prison for 14 years
right.
for conspiracy, for talking about something he did not do. And he wasn't talking about homicide. He wasn't talking about killing somebody. He wasn't talking about mass murder or some terrorist incident. He was talking about trying to gain some political gain or personal gain from selling Senator, now President Obama's political seat.
Right.
He did not do it.
Right.
So they put this guy in prison for 14 years for talking about something he didn't do. He wasn't able to do. There was no political gain, no personal gain. I just think, Blagojevich, give him 5 years probation and have him teaching. Give him 5 years probation and make him do community service.
But
at least let him work pay taxes, take care of his family. He had an 8 and 9-year-old daughter, I think.
And why not defer a finding on the felony conviction as well, so that if you do all the right things, you come back in 3 years or 5 years, and you get the felony off your record as well. We do this for first-time offenders in drug cases. We do it in assault and battery cases and domestic kind of situations, so people don't have a criminal record. Why in the world can't we do it in some of these other nonviolent economic crime type cases where you've got this situation? Say, fine, do your time, and then get this, so you don't have this conviction on your record as well that paints you as a pariah for the rest of your life.
And that right there, that one thing that you just said, could be one of the most important issues in U.S. criminal justice reform, because without that, if we continue going the way we're going, economically, it's unsustainable, and from a society standpoint, you actually are creating a complete second-hand class of people. If they don't change that, and that doesn't get changed federally and in state law, we're in dire straits for the future of this country.
And the reason I say that we need to get a more of a deferred finding situation like that is I can give you, I'm sure you can give me even more, but the horror stories of, let's say, somebody with a conviction from 15, 20, 25 years ago. And in our area, we have a lot of defense contractors. We have military bases. You cannot even get on a military base to do a job if you have a felony. And it could be 30 years ago. You could be 60 years old and commit some crime when you were 28, and they're going to say you can't come on the base. Now, what in the world? And it might well have been
forever.
Yeah, and it was it could be it probably is a nonviolent drug crime, and it's
you know what? Forget the drug crime. Put the drug crime aside for a second, because I know there's people listening saying, well, if they were dealing in drugs, they deserve what they get. Okay, well, think of this. A guy goes bow hunting and uses the wrong arrow to shoot an animal and winds up a convicted felon. Or a guy goes hunting and he shoots the wrong animal in the wrong place on the wrong day without the right permit. Or a commercial fisherman that catches too many fish. Or maybe he caught the wrong size fish. Or a guy that sells a whale's tooth on eBay.
Yeah.
They're all going to be convicted of a felony, and they're going to live by that same rule forever.
Well, now, isn't that part and parcel of this whole federal code section? The federal criminal code is so convoluted and so large that on almost any given day, somebody's breaking a federal law, isn't it? True. It's like
there's Harvey Glazebrook. I don't know if you ever saw his book. He wrote a book called 3 Felonies a Day, and basically it explains how any American citizen in this country actually commits 3 felonies a day. Whether you think you do, no matter how squeaky clean you are, how good your accountants are, your lawyers are. And here's the
what's his name again? I've known about this book, what's his name?
You have to read this book. His name is Harvey Glazebrook. Unbelievable book.
Yeah, isn't he from Oregon? I think I've heard about him. And and what's the name of the book? 3 Felonies a Day. We need to get him on the show.
3 Felonies a Day.
If you've just joined us, we're here with Bernard Kerik. He's the former police commissioner of New York City, hero of 9/11. Worked with Rudy Giuliani in security, and he's written a book called From Jailer to Jailed. And you're on Justice for All with George Yates. It's really a pleasure to have you here on the show.
Thanks.
So what can you do, or what can we do as a society to get some of these laws changed? What is your solution to it?
I think the biggest problem is educating the American people. In the last month or so, I've created an organization called the American Coalition for Criminal Justice Reform, ACCJR.org. And basically what I'm going to do, and this is what this is about and what I think should happen. First, the American people have to be educated. They have to learn the flaws and failures within the system and what's wrong with it and why and how it should work. And most importantly, then we have to go to the legislators. First of all, as you said earlier, they're scared to death to touch this issue because they're afraid they're going to look soft on crime. The reality is, if you continue going the route you're going, it's unsustainable economically. Society is being destroyed. Children are being destroyed. And it's stupid on crime if you don't fix it. So what I intend to do, and this will start realistically pretty soon, I'm going to be going out to New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina. I think the president, whoever that is, the next president, this has to be one of the top 5 domestic issues on his plate or her plate. This isn't a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. This is an American issue. It's got to get fixed. And I think the next president has to take this as a priority. So I intend to look at this from a political standpoint, try to educate the people in the legislators, in the House and Senate, to get them to understand why it has to be changed, and then create the debate that's needed to make the change at the presidential level.
We have these mandatory minimum sentences that are just draconian, and what is amazing to me is that there's been a lot of public conversation about this, and Eric Holder is Attorney General, and they've come out with these various policies that are releasing some nonviolent drug criminals early, from their sentences. But the fact is that in practice, and I can give you some present-day examples as a defense lawyer, it's still going on right now. Here, even our local United States Attorney's Office, we've got a nonviolent drug offenses, and they can certainly they have a choice when they make this charge as to whether or not they want to prosecute the defendant and go after him for the mandatory 10 or the mandatory 5. Or they can charge it less, and they seem to always choose the one that calls for the mandatory minimum. So I don't think in practice that's changing, even though they're talking about it at the national level. At the local level, these United States attorneys' offices are still prosecuting these low-level crimes, and they're trying to go for as much as they can get. And it's there's a disconnect between what's actually going on, in practice, and what's being talked about at the national level.
And that's exactly why the laws have to change. That's the reason. What you just said is the reason it's all about the laws. Eric Holder and the Attorney General, whoever that may be it Loretta Lynch if she gets confirmed, and former Attorneys General, they're all talking about this. Thornburg, Meese, they've all said the mandatory minimums and sentencing guidelines are draconian. They need to be changed. They need to be repealed, need to be looked at. And that word, that conversation is not getting down to the U.S. attorneys. And even if it is, look, the U.S. attorneys around the country, they are a political animal. They are political appointments. They're in a position where they want to look good, and the only way to look good in their eyes is to say we're doing A, B, C, and pushing to reduce crime and all this stuff. They have a job to do, but it's not helping society. It's not helping the victims of crime. It's not helping the families of those incarcerated. And don't get me wrong. Bad people that do bad things, they deserve to go to prison. But we're taking good people that make mistakes. We're taking good people that don't even know what they did wrong. We're taking young people that did something for the first time in a nonviolent capacity, and we're destroying all of them. And I think it has to change.
Tell us for just a little bit, and I'd like to get back to the justice system, but briefly, where were you on 9/11 when those planes hit the Twin Towers, and what exactly did you do right after?
Well, when the first plane hit Tower 1, I was actually in my office, and my staff came in and told me. And then I went down to the scene. The Emergency Operations Center for the NYPD for New York City was in Tower 7, which was right directly across the street from Tower 1. And if you recall, people were jumping from the top of that building. They were landing on the street and in the courtyard between Tower 1 and 2. So we couldn't get my vehicles onto Vesey Street. So we backed up on West Broadway. I was waiting for the mayor to contact me and be there. He was on the way down to the operations center, and that's when the second plane slammed through Tower 2. I was basically standing in front of that building at the time. The debris came down, the plane came down. Me and my staff got behind, there was a federal post office there. We got behind that building and waited for the debris to fall. And that was the beginning of that day. And, we basically worked from that point on for the next 3.5 months to get the city back on its feet and get it up and running the best we could.
And you were the commissioner of police of New York City at that time.
Yes, sir. I lost 23 people that worked for me, 22 men and one woman that worked for me. We lost 37 Port Authority cops and 343 firemen. And I think what a lot of people don't realize today is we have lost tens of people since as a result of illnesses relating to 9/11.
And your background prior to being the commissioner of the police was as a police officer, a corrections officer. Tell us your resume prior to that.
I've just about done everything under the sun. I've been a cop, a correction officer, a warden, a federal drug agent. I ran Rikers Island for 6 years. Then I became police commissioner. After I was police commissioner, I was appointed by President Bush as the interim minister of Interior for Iraq after the fall of Saddam. And then after that, I was appointed to take over Homeland.
And then your troubles began.
Yes, sir.
When you went in and pled guilty to that ethics charge, you thought this whole thing was over. What in the world happened there? You write in your book, and if you've just joined us, I'm George Yates. This is Justice for All. I'm with Bernard Kerik, former police commissioner of the city of New York. His book is From Jailer to Jailed, and you pled guilty to an ethics violation. And your lawyers, from what I read in your book, it seems that your lawyers were not aware that there was going to be more prosecutions against you.
Well, not only not aware. I mean, I was told by my lawyer at the time that would end all the investigations against me and that I could move on with my life. And I was told by the Bronx DA as well. The deputy district attorney personally told me that would be it. It's over. And I believed them. So I pled guilty. I paid the $220,000 fine, and that was it. Until several weeks later, to wake up one morning and hear on the news that the federal government was issuing subpoenas relating to the exact same thing that I had just been prosecuted for. So it was a rough time.
And your sentence, and this judge, Robinson, the federal judge that sentenced you, you have some choice words for him, and he kept firing your lawyer, making you fire your lawyers for conflicts. You spent millions, it seems like, on attorney's fees. Your description of the judicial process that you had to endure is not a pretty sight if you're talking about American justice.
Well, you know what? Listen, and with regard to the judge, I let the transcripts speak for themselves. Everything pertaining to the judge was transcripted, and I encourage people to read it and think about it, because when you are being investigated like this, when you are going through this process, it is a fight for your life, literally. It is a fight for your life. And you can only hope that you have a judge that, one, knows and understands the law, two, will rein in prosecutors and not let them do things they're not supposed to, and be fair and objective. That's it. That's all you want. That is not what I had. But like I said, George, I try not to focus on me. I try to focus on the system. What happened to me shouldn't have happened, but it shouldn't happen to anybody. It shouldn't happen to anybody. And look, I'm more fortunate than most because at the end of the day, well, at least I thought that I could fight these charges. But two things come out of that for me. One, and I talk about this in the book, if you don't have money in this country when you're going through something like this, you basically don't have constitutional rights if you don't have the money to pay for them. And I strongly believe that because I basically ran out of money. On my legal bill in October of 2009, 1 month, 30 days, in 30 days, my legal bill was $476,000. 1 month. And there were months, 100,000, 150, 200. But that 1 month is a demonstration of how bad it can be.
Well, can I ask
so
you?
That's number one.
I'm an attorney, and I do a lot of criminal defense work, and I'm always fascinated when I see these astronomical numbers that lawyers charge. And for instance, the Bob McDonald's lawyers. What in the world are these lawyers doing to justify a bill of $400,000 or even $100,000 in a month? I mean, I'll defend a criminal case, a federal criminal case, and maybe be able to do the entire case for a flat fee, even of somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 or at the most maybe $50,000. I know some lawyers might even charge as much as $100,000, but that would be for the entire case, not just for 1 month. Or
well, I was actually billed over a 2-year period, not counting probably $500,000 I already spent. I was probably billed 2.2 or 2.5 million.
I don't understand.
It's unsustainable.
Yeah, but I don't understand.
And
what in the world are these lawyers doing to justify a fee that large? And your guidelines, which, for those of you out there, the federal sentencing guidelines, I think your guidelines were somewhere at the upper end, were 33 months. You ended up getting the judge sentenced you to 15 months over the guidelines.
Right.
What are these lawyers doing? Are they billing? Were these hourly charges?
Yeah, it was hourly rates. You have two guys, two of the primary attorneys, hourly rates at $900 or $1,000 an hour, and then associates. And then when you file a motion, there's reviews, and there's reviews by partners, and there's reviews by analysts, and there's. Look, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, but I can tell you it's an enormous amount of money. But here's my bigger concern.
And they weren't very effective.
For others.
Go ahead.
You know what, George? How do these first-time, low-level, non-violent guys, how did they do this? How do they get through the system? How do they fight for justice? They don't have any money. They have nothing.
No, most of them are court appointed. They'll get either the federal public defender's office, and if there's a conflict, they'll get someone on the what they call the CJA list. It'll be a court appointed list, and they'll get very effective representation. I mean, certainly the lawyers that are on the list are qualified and do a lot of criminal defense kind of work. But the idea that somebody would charge that much money, to me, it's mind blowing. I don't see how in the world they're justifying their fees. What in the world kind of work can they be doing to justify that kind of money? It makes no sense.
Well, it happens. Yeah. And believe me, I'm not the only one. So, Listen, George, I got to get going.
Listen, it's appreciated that you're here. Bernard Kerik, his book is From Jailer to Jailed. The book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And it's a pleasure having you here, Mr. Kerik. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you. Okay, well, then we're going to go to a little short break here. This is George Yates with Justice for All, and we'll be right back after this little message.
Are you prepared to defend yourself and your family against any threat? Veteran-owned and operated One Shot Trading Post is ready to make sure that you are. Continuing training and classes on defense, survival, and weapons. Full gunsmithing services, special orders and financing available with military discounts. $15 transfers, and One Shot Trading Post is always looking to buy, sell, or trade. Located at 4366 Holland Road at South Plaza Trail, make sure that you're ready for anything at One Shot Trading Post, 463-5893, OneShotTradingPost.com.
RM Designs T-shirt printing and more is located in Smithfield, but serves all of Hampton Roads. They specialize in vinyl design shirts, apparel, window stickers, cups, and other specialty gifts. They also have rhinestone and embroidery designed apparel, and they offer Pandora-style beads and hardware to create a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. RM Designs T-shirt printing and more caters to businesses, sports teams, churches, groups, and family reunions. They also offer a great fundraising package should you be in need of money for a special project. And they also do home parties if you and your friends would like to get together and make your own creations. RM Designs T-shirt printing and more can be reached at 757-255-9140. That's 757-255-9140. Email them at rmdesigns11@aol.com or find them on Facebook at RM Twisted Designs. You can also place orders directly off their store at storeenvy.com/RM Twisted Designs.
Hi, this is Greg Bigoveris. Join me for Sports Scene each Wednesday from noon to 1 right here on News Talk 1650 WHKT. You can also hear the show on TuneIn as well. We will talk to local, regional, and nationally acclaimed sports guests, and we'll interact with our audience as well at Greg Bick on Twitter. Sports Scene, Wednesdays from noon to 1 right here on 1650 AM.
Denby Baptist Christian School is now enrolling students for the upcoming 2015-2016 school year. Denby Baptist Christian School offers a quality Christian education for students in kindergarten through the 12th grade and an early learning center for preschool children ages 2.5 to 4. DBCS is a ministry of Denby Baptist Church located in the Oyster Point section of Newport News, offering education marked by a biblical worldview, academic excellence, extracurricular activities, and affordability. Denby Baptist Christian School offers daily Bible classes and a weekly chapel service. Call and schedule your tour at Denby Baptist Christian School, 13010 Mitchell Point Road, Newport News. Call 757-249-2654. The mission of Denby Baptist Christian School is to educate the mind, nurture the soul, and shape the character of each student in a Christ-centered environment based on the truth of God's Word. Online at dbcs.org and dbcs-kids.org.
If finances are holding you back from enrolling your kids or grandkids in private Christian schools, call the radio station at 488-1010. We have a partnership program with several schools on the peninsula and the south side that allows us to offer a 35% discount off tuition for preschool through the 12th grade. Give us a call today at 488-1010 or visit our website at tuitionsolution.org. Did we mention we added daycares to the site? tuitionsolution.org.
Well, we're back, and I'm George Yates, and this is Justice for All. We're on 1650 AM here in beautiful downtown Portsmouth, Virginia. And it's another nice sunny day out there. We're live here in the studio, and if you want to make a comment about Bernard Kerik's book or any comments that we've just been talking about, you can call us, and the lines are open at 454-1650. That's 454-1650. Give us a call. So I'm George Yates, and we're here talking about this book, From Jailer to Jailed, Bernard Kerik. He's an interesting guy. He was one of these characters that you, as I recall, he was so inextricably entwined with Rudy Guiliani that you couldn't mention Bernard Kerik without thinking Rudy Guiliani. And it was, I think that when the whole idea of his corruption came up, it was just, I think that any of Rudy Giuliani's enemies, whether they were Democrat or Republican, just were positively gleeful that Rudy Giuliani's partner was, corrupt. And so that was it. And there was no way you can escape the fact that, now he did some things wrong. If you read the book, there was some, obviously you don't come in and plead guilty to something. I mean, he had lawyers that he was paying millions of dollars to. He ultimately pled guilty. It wasn't as if he went to trial and denied his guilt. So he did some wrong things. But the fact is that a lot of the stuff that he did is done by other folks too, and it's not as prosecuted as vigorously. So some of the tax evasion thing that he did, not paying a nanny, that sort of thing has been done by lots of people, or not reporting the nanny's earnings. It's kind of hard to escape the fact that Kerik wasn't a little bit of a vendetta, and to kind of paint Rudy Giuliani's partner as corrupt. And there's no way that you could say that didn't affect Giuliani's political fortunes, but Giuliani wasn't the most attractive candidate for president anyway, so I don't think that, regardless of what happened with Kerik, I think he's right that nothing that he was prosecuted for was ultimately responsible for Rudy Giuliani not getting further in the Republican nomination process. And especially some of the most recent things that Giuliani has said about the police and police shootings and so on. He doesn't seem to be saying the right things. He doesn't have the right temperament to lead the whole country. So anyway, that was a good interview. I'm pleased that we were able to have Bernard Kerik on the show, and the book was From Jailer to Jailed. We didn't really get into the fact that he supervised Rikers Island for, he said, 6 years, and we had a guest on our show last week called Gary Hayward, who wrote a book called Corruption Officer, and he discussed how he was corrupt while he was actually in as a corrections officer at Rikers Island. I didn't really want to get into that with Mr. Kerik, because I don't think that he had anything to do with Mr. Hayward's selling of cocaine while he was a corrections officer at Rikers. But it is interesting that in the last 2 weeks, and we've had both last 2 weeks, we've had guests that were corrections officers in New York City at Rikers Island, at one time anyway, who were found guilty later of corruption and did penitentiary time themselves. So it's interesting. We sort of have that thing back to back. We had Gary Hayward, who wrote the book called Corruption Officer, and he was our guest last week and 2 weeks before, right? Didn't we rerun that show last week? We actually, we did him live 2 weeks ago, and then last week I wasn't able to do the show live, so we reran Gary Hayward's account of his time as a corrections officer at Rikers. And then we had Bernard Kerik here just a little while ago talking about he was a supervisor of Rikers Island as well. So hope you're enjoying your day out there. It's a beautiful sunny day. I kind of wish I was out there a little bit. I think we're going to be looking forward to getting out of the studio here and enjoying this sunny day. Nice day to kind of sit around the swimming pool, I think, huh? Maybe water might be a little bit cold, but a nice day to sit out and catch rays. And hope you're enjoying this nice weather while you're, because it's been a long, cold, bad winter. Anyway, you're on 454-1650 is the phone. Somebody give me a call here, 454-1650 on K-Talk Radio, 1650 AM, WHKT in Portsmouth, Virginia. And we can talk about this old criminal justice system that he was just going after. And it is, I'm shocked by the amount of attorney's fees that, that these lawyers charge these high-profile defendants. And I don't really see much of a different result. He actually got sentenced to higher than the guidelines. He pled guilty. How in the world can you justify that kind of billing when ultimately, I'm not sure he got any better representation from those high-priced lawyers than he would have gotten from some court-appointed lawyer on the CJA list, right out of the or right out of the federal public defender's office. I don't get it. And Bob McDonald too. What were the bills that we're reading about in the millions of dollars for attorney's fees? Martha Stewart had a little white collar crime. Remember that? She did several years, I think, in the penitentiary for a nothing little crime. It's amazing, though, when you do read about someone like Bernard Kerik, who did what he did, where in the world is it justified to send someone like that to prison? He did 3 years and 11 days total. Just charging someone like that and giving them the charges is serious punishment. You convict them of any kind of crime, it's a punishment. You convict them of a felony, it's a lifetime punishment. And now you got to throw them behind bars too, for not a month, not 6 months, but more than 3 years. For what? It just doesn't seem to make any sense. And is punishing him in that manner going to deter crime? Similarly, is that their justification for it? It just doesn't make any sense. And yet, as a lawyer, if you stand up there in front of a judge now and say, well, Your Honor, you should be given probation, the judge is going to say, well, I have to follow the guidelines and I have to exact punishment. We are locking up in this society just hundreds and thousands of people that are no harm to the rest of us. Now, there are some very dangerous people that commit serious violent crimes that need to be locked up to protect them, to protect us from them. But folks like Bernard Kerik or Martha Stewart or Bob McDonald, we're going to go lock him up in prison? He got a 2-year prison sentence and his wife got a year. We're going to lock her up in prison for a year for taking some loans from this Johnny Williams guy and promoting his little product? Haven't you punished them enough when you completely take away their reputation and their dignity, and now you're going to throw them in prison too and give them a number? As long as and the idea that this felony record follows people around forever and ever is the worst thing. Is the worst thing of all. And so often as lawyers, we'll fight and say, "Well, listen, can you reduce this felony to a misdemeanor anyway?" Because there's a big difference between a felony and a misdemeanor. Even a misdemeanor crime, it carries a stigma on your record if it's a theft crime or something like that. And so what we talked about earlier on this show was an idea that perhaps we can get people that are first-time offenders like Bernard Kerik, and even if they've committed a crime like that of corruption or bribery or something like that, you can still put them in a position where if they do their community service or they do whatever it is they've got to do, and they do their time, if you will, but not real time, giving back to the community. And then after a period of time, they can be exonerated to some extent, or at least work off their crime so that they can, at the end of 3 years or 5 years, they can have a deferred finding and the charge will ultimately get dismissed from their record like so many other crimes. We have deferred finding statutes on marijuana cases, on possession of cocaine and certain felony drug cases. But we don't have deferred findings in other crimes that perhaps people should be allowed to try to get the conviction off of their record so they can say, I don't have a criminal record. So they can hold a license. They can go do certain things. And it's not for everybody, but it ought to be an option that's available for consideration. The whole idea of deferred finding is something that we need to consider in many of these instances, so people are not branded as criminals for the rest of their lives. So that's my take on it, and I think that from listening to Bernard Kerik, that's something that we need to consider going forward. You're here with Justice for All. I'm George Yates, and we're going to go to a little CBS news break here, and we'll be here for another hour. So enjoy your day. And stick around, and we're going to have a really fun hour coming up next. So see you later.